This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Hello everybody on the Tuesday that it is the 23rd of April. It is Party Loaded time. We are talking about all things great in the world of video games. We are coming to you slightly early this week because myself and the rest of our hosts here, I'm Luke Ritalik, we have Adrian Cheer, Matt Game Dad Diet, and Christian Paulson Brown.
Yo.
I think I can speak for all of us when I say that there was no way in hell we were recording tomorrow night.
No.
So... because tomorrow night, of course, for those playing at home, it's Avengers Endgame time, baby. So
It's our movie, Channel Endgame's movie coming out.
fucking A, it is. They read our shit and did it.
I thought that's what we were going to watch, a movie about ourselves.
Yeah.
Sure.
With all the secret footage Lucas filmed of us over the years.
Oh, jeez. No, I'm not editing that. Fuck off.
Yeah, don't edit it, just let it roll.
Oh, God.
Like every episode of this show. Yeah, absolutely. I had a conversation with some people over the Easter weekend just gone about how crazy it is this year that three of the highest earning entertainment franchises perhaps in history are all kind of wrapping up this year. So we've got Star Wars Episode 9 sort of coming out, and then Star Wars, by all reports, is going to take a little bit of a break, which is probably a good thing. We've got Avengers kicking off the final movie in their 22-movie arc, which is something I don't know if it'll ever happen in our lifetimes again. And then Game of Thrones is wrapping up real soon. So it's just nuts. What are they going to fill the void with?
I'm pretty sure it's a sign of the apocalypse.
Yeah. Could be.
We'll have to go back to entertaining ourselves.
Oh, yeah. How would we do that? So,
Yeah, I don't know.
Speaking of video games. Hey, Adrian, you want to kick us off tonight? What have you been playing, man?
Yeah, so I'm going to disappoint all our listeners by talking once more about Warframe because I haven't played anything else, and again, it's due to a downturn in funds. So I have been plodding along with the Nightwave that's currently running in Warframe. For those uninitiated, it's basically a season pass style tracker where you complete objectives and then earn points, and those points move you along a horizontal tracker, and as you reach certain milestones, you earn rewards. But what I did do this week is that I finished the tracker. So I earned all the rewards on there, and got some cool cosmetics for it, and that was kind of an achievement for me. So I'm very proud of that because I don't see too many other people walking around with those cosmetics on. So
Is that the first
I'm
time you
excited.
succeeded in doing that, or is that...
Well, it's the first time Nightwave has run, so yes and yes.
Ah.
But yeah, I've quite enjoyed it, and the good thing about it is that even once you've reached the end of that that path, you can keep grinding and earning some more drops as well. You just earn more of the credit that you can then spend with the vendor in game. So it's not all completely wasted. There's still a motivation to keep grinding those objectives, which is good. So I've been enjoying that. And the only other
Two more questions for you just before we get off
Sure.
the Warframe stuff, because I'm sure that you are keen to answer these anyway. Question one is, when does this Nightwave sort of reset and give you a new sort of range of things to purchase with that currency? And number two, have you got the new Warframe that released recently yet?
Okay, the first question, let me answer by doing this. I don't know.
Okay.
Is the answer to the first question.
Fair enough.
And to answer your second question, no, I don't have that Warframe yet. Hildren, she is locked behind some high-level content, and it's kind of like any other vendor in any other loot grinder where you need to level up your reputation with that vendor. And unfortunately, Hildren, one of the newest frames, is locked behind the highest possible level of reputation, and you need it from multiple sources, not just one. So there's many weeks of grinding involved to get that character. But I am almost there, so it won't be too long before I've got her under my belt as well.
Nice. Good.
The other game that I have dipped into is a mobile game, and it's called Brawl Stars. And I showed Christian this the other night. It's It's just
now,
a really simple...
You're a Brawl
Sorry.
Star.
I am a Brawl Star.
Get the show on.
Get your game on.
Get your game on. Sorry.
I'm trying to buy into the joke, but I can't remember any of the lyrics. Which is a shame, because I actually love that song. Not in an ironic way either, which makes it kind of sad. But Brawl Stars is a 3-on-3 top-down character arena game where you just get into teams of 3 and fight each other. It's kind of like Battle Right, if anyone remembers that. That launched on Steam not too long ago. And it's just a bit of fun. I just play it on my mobile. But I am shocked to see one of the most horrendous in-game purchases ever. And that is they have a rotating store in the game where you can buy loot boxes and cosmetics and that kind of thing. And a couple of weeks ago, there was a legendary character on offer, which is the highest tier of character, who's a little cactus person. And I was like, yes, because I love cactus people in video games. That's not a thing the listeners would really know about me, but I love mushroom people and cactus people. There you go. There's something you've learned.
Anything phallic, basically.
Well, I mean, let's get back on track for a second. Now I have to think about this.
I was going to say, Christian, if you're comparing cacti to phalluses, you probably need to get checked.
I was going to say,
If you look at them with a bit of blur, then
yeah. I mean, unless you're talking about a little prick, then sure. But cool. All right.
Okay, all right. Look, there was a Cactus Man in the shop. I wanted to buy him, but it turns out it cost $80. There you go. You ruined my This Week in Gaming. Matt, onto you. I'm done.
Well, $80 is ridiculous. How much is that though in child shards? I have to ask.
Oh, that's nothing in child shards. It's at least like 4,000 child shards to $80.
Wow. Okay.
oh my god. Okay, how am I going to follow on from that?
I don't know.
Okay. So I actually put in some time over this past weekend. I played some more Destiny, of course, but I also actually put in some time with some things that were on my list of shame that I've not actually finished yet. So I actually picked up SpiderMan on the PS4 again to get in and actually play the DLC. And yeah, thanks. I hate the heist.
Oh,
It's bad. Like, quite honestly, if I had played the heist before our Party Game of the Month, Party Game of the Year thing last year, Spider-Man would not have made it to my top 3.
Ooh, wow, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
What aspect of it do you not like so much?
So the main storyline is really good. It's super solid. It is more Spider-Man, which is great. Mm-hmm. But seriously, fuck the screwball stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It is so bad. Like, just genuinely frustrating. Like, so the screwball is this character from Spider-Man, I guess. I don't give a shit about them. But they are these events. So when you had like these little side events in the standard Spider-Man, you would have a thing like, you know, defeat X number of enemies in a limited amount of time as part of this little side event. So screwball activities are basically that, but they add this whole photobomb thing that you have to do as part of them to earn extra points. And they cap out your ability to earn a certain amount of points by beating enemies fast and such. But the way the photobomb stuff works is it's like, okay, so you're fighting all these enemies, you need to defeat all these enemy waves in a limited amount of time, you have your bronze, silver, and gold medals and everything, and you have to basically kill enemies within the photobomb space when it's active to get extra points to get the silver and gold. Like, that is the most important thing to do during these events. But in the combat events, it's one, reliant upon the enemies actually moving into that tiny little area that the photobomb takes place in, and two, completely ignores the fact that Spider-Man is a game that's all about momentum and knocking enemies around, and so they can be within the space, but you can KO them outside the space and not get credit for, you know, having done the photobomb. And yeah, it got to the point where I was just like, wow, fuck this. I am really tired, and I just basically, like, I did 100% the heist, but now I've gotten to the next DLC, and I've realized there's more of the screwball activity stuff, and I don't give a shit. Like, I could not care less. The only reason I'm probably going to end up doing it is because it has been hinted that at the end of doing all that screwball stuff, I might get to beat the shit out of her, which honestly is appealing enough that I will probably end up doing it. But oh my god, it is so badly designed. It's just, like, it feels like, okay, well, we need to add more stuff, so let's just take these activities that worked really well and tack on this mechanic that makes it not work well at all. And the main reason it's frustrating is because you're relying on the AI to maneuver themselves into the space so you can get the photobomb, and you don't really have many abilities. Like, you can yank them around and everything and push them, but even then, when you get them in the space and you knock them out, they go flying out of it, you're not getting any credit. So it just frustrated the hell out of me.
That sounds terrible. Why would you implement a static objective in a game that's all about fluid movement?
Well, it's about using
know.
your fighting moves and your controls effectively. Like, I got to say, Matt, I actually disagree with you. I think that it's a lot easier than you're making out. You just have to learn how to use the combat mechanics effectively to draw people in. So, yeah.
Okay, so Luke, tell me
like
how I
an
use the
easy
combat mechanics to get enemies into the space.
Well, I mean, if it's the exact one that I'm thinking of, you can use your web shooters to drag enemies or actually pick them up and fling them around. So there's options there. But it's also about where you position yourself. So, you know, you can position yourself in a way that you're actually flinging the enemies as you punch them into that area, as opposed to being on the other side of it. So, but it's hard to demonstrate without actually using visuals. But I get the frustration you're talking about. I don't think it's quite as bad as what you're making out, though. So,
did you get a gold medal on any of those events?
All of them.
Curious. All of them.
Every single one. Yeah.
What the fuck? Because, like, I spent 2 hours last night in one of those events, and I would constantly come up 500 points short from getting gold.
Yeah.
And it just completely destroyed my desire to 100% the game. Like, SpiderMan was one of those few games that I was actually really interested in getting the platinum for. And now, as far as the DLC stuff goes, I'm just like, no, it is just not fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to criticize Screwball as a character, I 100% am with you there, because Screwball is terrible. Like, if you basically take the Riddler from the Arkham series and have those style of challenges, but instead of the Riddler, who's a fucking cool character villain, and replace it with this whiny brat millennial, like, you know, little teenage girl blogger, that's basically what this character is, and she is a fucking pest, and she's shit. The challenges, though, if you approach them from the right direction, they can be fun. So there are some that are a lot better than others, though. Like there's one in particular that I can't remember which one of the DLCs it's in, but it actually encourages you to use a couple of your spider gadgets in combination with each other in ways that you wouldn't have actually thought of, and you get some really fucking cool results with those. So.
Yeah, the gadget challenge actually made me use some of my gadgets that I never used during the Spider-Man campaign. Like, the gadget challenge was not bad.
Yeah.
I did have to read up a tutorial because at first I wasn't able to get even a bronze, and I couldn't understand why.
Yeah.
And it turned out it was because I was trying to get the photobomb too much. And that's part of the problem, is that sometimes the photobomb is super important, and then other times it's just not.
Yeah.
The combat one that I was stuck on was like this waterside fight space, and it was wide open. But you compare that space to, like, there's a rooftop with photobombs on it, but it's so small, and enemies have to be kind of crowded up, so you don't have that far to move to get them into a photobomb to knock them out, and that's not so bad. But the one by the waterside is just, like, oh my god, I just could not put up with it anymore. But the real problem that I have with Screwball, like, yes, the character is annoying, and they play up the blogger, YouTuber shit way too much, but the thing that really annoys me is that if you get a bronze or a silver, she gives you shit. Like, she actually really tears into you about the fact that you're useless and you're bad at this and everything. And it's not fun. Like, it's not satisfying as for a game that's so well designed. This feels like game development 101, that you don't tell your player they suck, you know? Like, you give them reason to try again. You talk them up, but, you know, just getting past one of those, even on a bronze medal, is an achievement, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it is just so bad. But they make it so that I probably wouldn't be as frustrated if Screwball wasn't such a shit character. Like, quite honestly, if every time I failed, I didn't get, you know, torn up for the fact that I sucked, like, I probably wouldn't care as much. But anyway, I offset my frustration with Spider-Man the Heist being shitty by downloading and playing this game called Islanders, which is super cute and super interesting. I love city builder games, and this is unlike any other city builder I've actually played before. The best way I can describe it is it's an arcade city builder, and it's really interesting. You get points by putting certain buildings together, and so, like, you know, you have a mill, so you put crops around it, you get points for crops being around the mill. But then the crops being next to each other also adds points, and, you know, cities like houses, and you have a city center and all that. Yeah. but you have to unlock. So you have a very limited amount of space. So you're only on a map for a certain amount of time, filling it up with buildings and really cramming everything in there. But you have to earn points to get to the next map and continue the game. And it's basically like this score test type thing where you need to earn a certain amount of points to get to another map and to build more buildings. And you need to earn a certain amount of points to unlock more buildings to place. It's really interesting. Like, it's super hard to kind of describe, but incredibly relaxing. I was playing it while watching a whole bunch of Avengers movies to catch up before Endgame. And yeah, like, it just absorbed time. I put in like 8 hours with it just messing around. It's really good.
Nice.
Like,
is this a new release or something?
It's a new release, like literally this month. So.
Oh, wow, cool. I'm going to make a note and check that out later because that's exactly the kind of game that I'm sort of interested in right now as well. So
yeah.
Yeah.
If they put it on a mobile or on the Switch, holy crap. Like, I would love to take that game with me.
Yeah. I've been eyeing off Stardew Valley on mobile recently for the same reason, but haven't pulled the trigger just yet. So, yeah. All right, well, let's throw to Christian then. What's going on this week with you? Anything interesting?
Not much, really. I'm still in a post Sekiro lull where I haven't found anything that's really grabbed me since. I did try one game. I actually downloaded and booted up Ukelele. Yeah, because I backed it way back when on Kickstarter and got sent my code years ago, but had never actually played the game. I absolutely loved Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie as a kid. I've still got my Banjo-Tooie cart. And I don't know, like I started playing Ukelele and it just feels wrong. Like, yeah, it's like catching up with a childhood friend, but you've kind of moved on from your childhood and things aren't quite right about them. They're like remembering stories from your childhood wrong, and you're like, no, that's not what it was.
Like when nostalgia doesn't hold up, sort of thing.
Yeah, well, it's like all of the. I feel like if it was an actual Banjo-Kazooie game, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But because it's this imposter with Yooka and Laylee, but it's so close, like because the same musical composer, the music is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, talk us through that. I actually don't understand where this fits in with Banjo-Kazooie. Is it like literally like a Mighty Number 9 kind of situation? Or
yes, it is. It's literally
yeah.
Mighty. Yeah, so it's original developers founding Playtonic Games and making a legally distinct Banjo-Kazooie.
Right.
So two characters, one rides on the other one. You collect feathers instead of musical notes. It's a clone game basically. Like everything's the same. The characters they got the little squawk talks that they do. The music is the same composer. Everything has googly eyes on it, like a 90s Rare game. It is literally just like Banjo-Kazooie, but sort of texture swapped. And that yeah.
Can I take a guess as to what might be making it fail?
What?
Is it that the game looks like it's made in a void? Like, are the worlds like too cut and paste and not kind of like designed well enough?
I was thinking that. I did only experience the first proper world because I bounced off the game pretty hard. But yeah. I was having trouble sort of reconciling. Is it really that it looks kind of copy paste and empty, or was it just that Banjo-Kazooie at the time was such like a restricted view because everything was like such low resolution and so close up, and the draw distance was so low that if I was running around, if it was on the Nintendo 64, would it have felt that way? And I'm not sure. Like, maybe it still would have felt kind of emptier and soulless, even if it was an actual N64 game. But part of me thinks that if you put this in my like hands as a 10-year-old or whatever and played it on an N64, I would have loved it. I really just feel like for me it's not actually Banjo-Kazooie, that it is wearing the skinned flesh of Banjo-Kazooie, and that kind of terrifies me.
So it's almost like if you had never played Banjo-Kazooie before, it might hold up okay, but because you've got that basis of comparison, it's just not going to do it.
Maybe, but that's a separate issue in itself of like the like genre, that like kind of gaming industry moving on from mascot platformers in a way. Like, I went back and played Banjo-Kazooie on my Nintendo 64 a couple of years ago, and I still enjoyed that. But so like I can still enjoy the genre, I think, but I do need that extra layer of nostalgia on it. and Banjo-Kazooie, that layer of nostalgia is like poisonous.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so I think even like standard modern gaming sensibilities, people probably wouldn't enjoy it either. So it's kind of missing the mark on several fronts. But I don't know, like maybe I'll go back and try and play it again, but it just feels a bit wrong.
Yeah.
It feels like a game out of time is the kind of thing that I got when I played it and bounced off of it.
It's like,
because
I feel.
It's so strange, like, because I love Banjo-Kazooie, and I can go back and replay Banjo-Kazooie now and still love it just as much. But it feels really wrong how modern Yooka-Laylee is, because all the characters are like this nice stylized thing, but then the environments, like, they feel like they're too much. And I don't know, like, that's just one little thing, but I don't know. It's really strange.
Yeah, I do agree. And yeah, so that's a sad tale, but I kind of knew that I wasn't going to really like stick to it very much, and that's kind of why I'd put it off so long, I guess. But I just wanted to finally actually find out, and there we go.
Yeah. Not a game that you get a new game plus 4 times by the sound of it.
No, definitely not. I was thinking of buying Sekiro on PC actually, so I could play it again with higher frame rate.
God.
Wow.
Do we need...
If you're gonna... Like, I played Ashen, maybe you should play it for me. Like,
maybe.
Yeah.
I think we all need to write letters and sit Christian down and explain that we're doing this because we love him.
I'm actually one step away from getting you all mobilized and organizing an in-person, like, fucking intervention at this point.
Yeah.
Jesus.
You mean like a session where I can, like, sort of espouse the virtues of Sekiro and show you how good it is? That's what you're talking about, right?
Terrible plan.
We'll walk away loving it. We were like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
no, I'm bringing a sign that says Sekiro no.
Sekiro.
So, Christian, are you saying that actually coming around and trying to stop you from playing it would be like the Dark Souls of interventions?
It would be. Yeah, you died, son of a bitch.
Oh, God. All right. Well, my week's been reasonably uneventful this week. I had some plans that I kind of didn't end up following through with because I just got sucked into Minecraft again. So Sky Factory 4 has been fantastic. I've been finding them actually approaching it very differently to what I usually do with Minecraft, where like Minecraft's usually a very creative outlet for me, and I spend a lot of time sort of aesthetically making things that are pleasing and kind of sort of tapping into that Lego gene side. But with Sky Factory, because there's so much tech involved in this mod pack, and because a lot of it is not super intuitive, you really have to tinker around until you can kind of get it working. It's turned into somewhat of a puzzle game for me, which is a very new experience in Minecraft. And there's actually not a huge amount of online resources that are easy to pass for this stuff. Like, I can go hunting for it, but because there's so many mod packs involved and not all of them are necessarily designed to interact with each other in ways that you would expect, you kind of, like, it's a lot of trial and error. Like, it all ultimately tends to work. I mean, there's the odd bug here and there, but it just takes time. Like, it just takes time to muck around and work them out. And part of the puzzle is also in learning how to use different sort of tech and tools to automate processes as well to save yourself time. So it's it's a very interesting sort of multi-layered puzzle that I'm kind of working through, and there's some cool ridiculous stuff in there too. So I've just spent the afternoon trying to work out how to create slime trees. That's been fun. So it's weird. But the thing that I actually want to talk about tonight, I actually want to do something a little different to the norm when it comes to This Week in Gaming. And instead of talking about a game that I've played, I actually need your help, guys. Now, I have a game that I've been seriously contemplating playing, and I actually need all three of you to either push me off the fence or to pull me back off the fence in one way or the other, because I'm teetering at the moment, and this is a really weird thing for me because I'm usually very quick to commit one way or the other.
Just play Warframe, Luke. Just do it.
No, it's not Warframe. So, all right, there's a game that is actually releasing today or tomorrow our time, sort of US time, and it's a game genre that I typically do not play a lot of. I don't hate the genre, but it's very hit and miss whether I enjoy the games in the genre. But I do have a historical connection to this particular genre, and
spit it out.
I've been really excited by some things that I've seen this week. So the game is Mortal Kombat 11. I cannot decide if I want to pull the trigger or not. I fucking love the background of Mortal Kombat in terms of like the characters and the weird ass story. Like, I don't know all of it. Like, I haven't played the games 1 through 10 or anything like that. I've picked up enough. Like, I've kind of read the lore from afar and I've absorbed what I need to sort of know what's going on.
They rebooted it in 9 anyway, so.
Exactly.
Well, Luke, let me fill you in on the Mortal Kombat lore.
Yeah.
No fucking idea.
Ed Boon, the series' creator, has pretty much said as much. So yeah, and it's weird and it's wacky and it's ridiculous. I linked you guys the trailer the other day to Mortal Kombat 11. They pulled all the fucking nostalgia buttons out. Like they had the original movie soundtrack music. They've even got the same actor doing the voice role of Shang Tsung, who's in the movie. So I forget what the guy's name is, but it's actually that actor doing the voice. And there's a ton of really cool looking characters. All of the fatalities look great. The fighting and everything in general looks excellent. The way that the game is put together in terms of all the different options with sort of progressing through the story and the different game modes and some of the unlockables for cosmetics and all that sort of stuff looks really cool. If I was ever going to get into a fighting game in a big way, it would probably be this or Injustice, and Injustice nearly got me there. But this, I don't know, it's just something about it that's really drawing me in. But by the same token, I don't know if it's a good idea because I'm typically not a fighting game guy. So I don't know. What do you think?
Knowing you and your taste, Luke, I do think that Mortal Kombat 11 would be the best fit for you of any fighting game, definitely. Because, and it is the biggest kind of chunkiest single player content of any fighting game, really. Like the amount of effort they've put into the story and the progression system and everything, it has the most in it for somebody who doesn't typically play a fighting game. There are a lot of fighting games. Like if you picked up Street Fighter V on release, it's just press that button for online versus. They didn't have any single player content at all.
Yeah.
But Mortal Kombat 11, I really think you could enjoy that single player side of things. It might not last long. It might only last a couple of days, but I think you'd enjoy it.
I agree, and I think you touched on a bit of it as well with the single-player stuff, Christian, but the Mortal Kombat stands aside for me from other fighting games because of how sort of cinematic they deliberately make the game, where sort of half the fun of that game is experiencing the visual gore and sort of hedonism that it offers. So while in other fighting games, you've got special moves, you've got super moves, they're not lavished with the same attention that Mortal Kombat is. So I think, unlike other fighting games, if you're going to sit down and enjoy it on your own, then it's one of the fighting games where you will discover cool things and you'll go, oh, that move was awesome, and like, oh, that was gross. Like that kind of thing won't happen in other fighting games. Yeah. I also think you should get it, Luke, so that I have an excuse to get it and thrash you. Because you
would too, because I'm definitely not going to be great at it.
You will not be able to get up. Like, I will annihilate you.
I don't know if that's an incentive or not, man, honestly.
All right, well, I'll go easy then to begin with.
I mean, look, it would be fun to play against one of you as well at the same time. So I don't know, maybe that is a point in its favour. I'm not expecting to be good at it, but yeah. Look, it's that over-the-top bombastic sort of ridiculousness that generally does draw me in, if you know what I mean. It's the same with Devil May Cry. The same kind of thing. So
I really think you should. Because I get the impression that they're kind of going for a Dragon Ball FighterZ kind of thing where they might make it accessible. And if they do that, it'd be fucking great. But yeah, I'm curious. I have been watching it. Was it the E3 trailer that was filled with the rap? And it was just like, oh my God, this is awful.
Yeah,
that was the Game Awards.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Game Awards, that's right.
Was that the reveal trailer?
Yeah, it was. Because they bashed out through, I think it was the sports game category. It suddenly, like you saw... Scorpion's grappling hook just shatter through the screen, and then because Ed Boon was presenting that award, so yeah.
But there's been a whole bunch of stuff I've seen since, like that most recent trailer is freaking great. There's been a bunch of fatalities that I've seen. I never have actually played a single Mortal Kombat game, but this makes me want to play one. So if you play it and you like it, I might pick it up. So
hey, fun side question that is a game adjacent. If each of you had your own fatality, what would it be?
Oh my God. You put me on the spot.
I would obviously summon 3 of my barbershop friends and croon at you so high and loud that your head would explode.
That's a good one.
So
I like
good.
That. That's great.
And we'd all be wearing like the stripy jackets and the boater hats. And it'd be like 4-part harmony, and then boom! Brains everywhere.
That's fucking great. I like that answer.
I like the idea of my fatality putting the other character into like a business suit, and then I smash through the window and accuse them of forcing their game developers to crunch and then just murder them.
Interesting.
I got nothing. I'm sorry, I've got nothing.
You got nothing?
No.
You pull a test tube out of nowhere and stick them in it and shake them until they just collapse into goop?
Yeah, I was thinking something like that. Or just like mixing up some weird concoction in a test tube and then getting them to sip it and then they just like explode horribly for no reason or something. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't actually do any chemistry though, so whatever.
No, I know. That's a super weird leak. Yeah, I don't know. I reckon I'd take their hand and find the little sort of bit of skin that sticks out the side of their fingernails. What do they call it? The quill or whatever. And I would just peel that back and just peel the skin off their body.
Yeah, that's horrible.
It'd be terrible.
And the whole time, Fear Factory would be blaring on like the loudest volume setting.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man. Well, on that slightly positive and cheerful note, let's dip into some gaming news.
Now it's time to hear some gaming news. Time for some gaming news.
Yeah, so one of the first news items to come out this week has to do with Fortnite, and love it or hate it. I think in Matt's case it might be a hate. There's been a crossover for Fortnite. So anyone who caught the news last time it came around or played the game during its release. Last time there was a big Avengers movie, which was Infinity War. Fortnite actually had Thanos as a playable character in the game. So they added a game mode where you could play as the big guy. You could leap extremely high in the air. And it was kind of like a, what's right? Not King of the Hill? Is King of the Hill the kind of thing?
Juggernaut?
Juggernaut? Yeah, Juggernaut. So it was like a Juggernaut style of game where everyone had to gang up on Thanos. And if you managed to kill him, I think you actually dropped the gauntlet and then you got to be Thanos. So that was a nice little power trip. All that's been teased for this news item is a character from Fortnite holding Captain America's shield. So there's speculation as to whether that might mean a cosmetic addition to the game or a new game mode involving the shield. At the moment, Fortnite characters don't have the ability to wear cosmetic items on their arms, so it's unlikely that it's purely cosmetic. And seeing as they've done something like this before, it seems likely they might add some sort of playable Captain America or Avengers-themed thing to the game. So if you're a Fortnite fan, keep an eye out for that.
The Thanos mode was super popular. That did really well for them. Yeah. Looked like a lot of fun too. So
It'll be really funny if Captain America dies in Endgame, and so the shield just kills you when you pick it up.
Jesus.
Why would you pick it up then?
See, I always thought when they did the Thanos mode that the way that it should work is that you pick up the gauntlet and then half of the players selected at random just disappear from the game.
That would be amazing.
That would be awesome.
So good.
Yeah, but it never happened, which is really disappointing. So,
well,
I don't know. Anyway.
What they should have done with that is like you become Thanos, but you have the gauntlet but no Infinity Stones. You have to run around the map and collect them. And if you get all of them, you just kill half the players.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
That'd be really good.
That would be cool.
Man, we should design a video game.
Yeah. Funny that. All right. Well, we talked a little Assassin's Creed Unity last week, but Matt, apparently there's a weird update on that stuff.
Yeah, so I've kind of taken point on covering all the review bombing stuff and things about Steam and Epic Game Store and such, but the Assassin's Creed Unity got reverse review bombed, and this is kind of interesting in that how Steam get a deal with it, because the whole this is pretty much review tampering, right? Like that's the thing they've been going against. They shut down a whole bunch of negative reviews, but now it's getting Assassin's Creed Unity is getting a whole bunch of positive ones, because they made the game available for free, kind of as as a result of what happened in Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
And they donated 500,000 euros.
Yes, yeah. There's a whole bunch of money being put towards rebuilding it, but yeah, like it's really. I think the more interesting news item here is how Valve are going to deal with it, because is that reflective of the game's value, or is that or its quality, or is this reflective of people showing appreciation? Like it is the nega version of what the news item was we were covering just last week, I think, with what I forget what it was, Borderlands getting review bombed.
Yeah.
So this is like review uplifted, I guess. Like it's really strange. Like Assassin's Creed Unity on Steam had mixed reviews, and it's actually been lifted up into positive now.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our friends have been playing it this last week, and they're actually really enjoying it. So it's kind of weird. Like, I know that it got a really bad rap at the time they got it released, because if memory serves, Unity was the one that had that weird sort of face model sort of bug as well, wasn't it?
That was really rare. Like that was one photo that got circulated around.
I'm aware of that, but that tainted the game's like
perception, but not the game itself.
I know, but this is how user reviews work. We know that user reviews are fucking terrible, and you know, people latch onto that kind of controversy, and that it inherently affects their ability to give a game an impartial sort of write up, because that's the sort of thing that people talk about. It becomes the meme of the month. It's the thing that taints everything. So I think that there's probably a couple of things at play here. One is the fact that, yes, this is just a pure goodwill thing where a lot of people are coming forward and saying, good go Ubisoft. Let's actually reward them. Let's, give the game positive reviews in a large quantity because, hey, why the fuck not? They're doing a great thing. Let's, do the reverse of what we normally do. But the other aspect of it is I think that you've got to recognize as well, there's a lot of people that are suddenly playing Assassin's Creed Unity that haven't before simply because the game is free.
Yeah.
And those people might actually be coming into it thinking that, hey, this game's actually all right. So
I think that's part of it. And I do think that as someone who played it when it came out and has played nearly every Assassin's Creed game as they come out, there's definitely a difference in the climate now that I can see people enjoying the game a lot more. So when it came out, it was the first Assassin's Creed after a couple that took away naval combat, and people were really disappointed by that. It also had the worst loot box and not loot boxes, but microtransaction implementation of any Assassin's Creed so far, and that was really egregious. And they did rip most of that out, and then also it not being the hot new thing, people I feel less inclined to pay attention to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think also there are some features of the game that make it so it would be perceived better now than at the time.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but compared to Origins and Odyssey, this is the last mainline one that actually had the co-op multiplayer, isn't it?
I don't know actually. I think it was because it had up to 4-player co-op multiplayer.
Yeah.
That was a big selling point of it. So yeah, I'm not sure if Syndicate had it, but
yeah, well, Unity came after Syndicate, I think. So maybe it's getting some big ups because of that too, because it's something that hasn't been offered recently. So yeah,
it could be.
It's super weird. I think that if it is, clear that it is a review bombing situation where it's being artificially inflated for reasons outside of the game quality, then Valve almost has a duty to step in and basically apply the same rules for, their review bombing policies when it's in the negative. But they're in a kind of lose-lose situation by doing that, because no one's going to look kindly on Valve for, cutting off a goodwill effort at the knees. So
I don't think they will. I think that going in and review bombing something with positive reviews is not going to have as massive an impact on the Steam store, especially when that game's going for free.
Yeah.
Than a game getting review bombed, which is going to impact sales.
Here's the thing, though. Do you not think it sets a dangerous precedent? Because there is now an eye on this happening, and other companies could quite easily turn around and say, okay, this is obviously a viral marketing opportunity for us. How can we replicate this and get our own games positive review bombed to raise the rating by doing something silly and unique? So
I could absolutely see that happening.
If the thing they're doing is giving the game away for free, then bring it on.
Yeah, exactly. The whole problem with this is that Valve can't separate positive reviews that are just for the sake of being positive from reviews that are positive because the game's actually good. Whereas the negative reviews, that's really easy to just go and say, here's a whole shit ton of negative reviews that are panning the fact that it's not on the Steam store.
Yeah.
Here it's a bit more fuzzy. If it was something somebody went and announced that they were going to release a Steam exclusive title and fuck the Epic Game Store, here's my game, and then it got a whole bunch of positive reviews because they said fuck the Epic Store, that might be a bit more cut and dry in terms of the positive reviews, but here I don't think it is.
Yeah. It's a weird one.
Interesting.
Anyway.
And so in other interesting news, so the Halo TV series, which has kind of been hovering around in the background and, not really much news coming out of it, well, it's actually got its Master Chief now, and I'm totally going to mispronounce this, but Pablo Schreiber, whose credits include American Gods, First Man, and Orange is the New Black. I have actually seen him in American Gods.
He's great. He's real good.
Yeah. He's good. And he's also only 5 inches shorter that the Master Chief is without his armor on. So he certainly fits the size. Yeah, he's an Emmy and Tony nominated actor. Like this team they're actually putting together for the Halo series is pretty damn good. Like it has me kind of excited, and I shouldn't be because I fully expect that it won't be great. But I like the Halo miniseries I actually kind of enjoyed. But if this actually ends up being good, then holy crap, like it could breathe new life into Halo.
It does give us a bit of an idea as to what direction they're going to go with Chief, though. And if they are going to make him a mute sort of figurehead with someone like Pablo Schreiber playing the lead, that is a fucking wasted opportunity with that actor. So,
So the thing about the Chief in the most recent Halo games, which you wouldn't know, Luke, is that he very much stops being just a mute. Like, he talks way more often, especially in the most recent outing. Like, he becomes kind of front and center to the story in a really big way. It's all about hunting him down, and him leading a team, so he has to talk much more often. So I would fully expect that if this, depending on where this takes place in the timeline, like, yeah, if it's more recent, then I would expect him to talk. So,
interesting. All right. Well, in the meantime, if you're looking for stuff to watch, turns out there's a very, very cool new documentary. It's going to be coming our way real soon. So, God of War, you may have heard of it. It came out last year and won a fuck ton of Game of the Year awards. PlayStation actually has a documentary coming up on its YouTube channel very shortly, which is going to be called Raising Kratos, or Kratos, or however you want to pronounce it.
Kratos.
I've heard it a couple of times.
Don't even pretend, Luke. Don't pretend.
Was this documentary developed in Canada?
Oh, shut up. Anyway, if you're wondering what it's about, it's basically going to be the making of story of the latest God of War. So Cory Barlog, of course, from Sony Santa Monica, is going to be featuring pretty front and center with a lot of the stuff that goes on with it. He's on the sort of cover image for the documentary already, and there is a trailer up. But yeah, I think that from the interviews that I've seen that Cory Barlog has done with various different news outlets over the course of the last 12 months, this would be a fascinating story to see, especially how they've actually gone from completely transforming the way that Kratos was presented with the earlier God of War games to how they've changed him for the latest incarnations. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And who knows, they might actually put a couple of teasers in there as to what they're working on for the next installment. So don't know when exactly it's going to be coming. They're sort of just teasing it at the moment, but it'll be coming to the Sony YouTube soon. And if we find out when, we'll mention it.
There's actually a other documentary I wanted to bring up really quickly because it just recently came out on Netflix, called Playing Hard, which is Ubisoft Montreal. So it's about a bunch of developers in Ubisoft Montreal making No Honor or For Honor, sorry.
For Honor?
For Honor.
Yeah.
Everyone's just flubbing the names today.
I know, what the hell. But yeah, but that one actually follows just a handful of developers rather than the process of making the game. So it's a very, very different kind of context. I was reading about it. I have it on my list of things to watch. But like if you're going to watch the God of War documentary, I definitely think Playing Hard would be up your alley as well.
Yeah, I think there are very few game studios that are that confident in their internal process that they're happy to lift the lid and actually show it in a format like this. So, yeah, I mean...
Apparently the guy making Playing Hard got kicked out of Ubisoft Montreal at one stage because they weren't very happy with the idea of him making a documentary in their studio at that point in time.
Oh, wow.
But, he got allowed back in. So it's not actually an Ubisoft documentary. It's by a guy that just got allowed into the building, essentially. Compared to the God of War thing, which is it'll have spin, put it that way.
It'll be masturbatory for sure.
Yeah. So it's like the difference of the studio doing it themselves as opposed to someone like a Danny Dwyer coming in and doing like a no-clip thing.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Are we really going to go through that whole segment saying Playing Hard and masturbatory and not make a joke? I can't believe we made it through that whole news item without...
I let a little giggle when it was said. So.
Well, it's like all dick jokes, Adrian. They're low-hanging fruit, so,
oh, God.
Anyway, moving on. I spoke last week about how excited I was about the new update coming very, very shortly for the Division 2. And that was actually due to be landing this week, the day after the Avengers Endgame drop, actually. But unfortunately, it looks like Ubisoft and Massive Entertainment have pushed it back. So they're going to be looking at dropping it sometime in May. It's called Title Update 3, which is basically sort of rolled into what they're calling Operation Dark Hours. And that raid is the 8-player one that I spoke about. So instead of hitting later this week, it's going to be sometime in May. They haven't said exactly when. Could be early, could be late. Hopefully it's not too late. I was really looking forward to it. But like, honestly, if they need to push it back a couple of weeks to polish it and make sure that it's going to be as good as it possibly can, as with any game releasing late for that reason, I'm all in favor of that. So, do it right. Make sure that it kicks ass, and I'm going to be happy whenever it drops. So, but yeah, that being said, I am kind of like, look, I've still got a bit left to do in the game, but I would love some extra content right about now because I've been playing it a lot, and more so than I think it was designed to be played by any sort of sane individual. So, yeah. That being said, played a bunch of Dark Zone this afternoon. It was good fun. But anyway, so that's it from me.
Yes. Speaking of things getting delayed, Game Informer Australia is getting delayed forever.
Oh,
because it's
fucking terrible, Christian.
because it's shutting down.
Jesus.
I'm sorry.
That's
okay,
excellent.
it's very sad.
Wow.
But yeah, they're still going to sell the US version of Game Informer in Australia. And to be honest, like I always would like see Game Informer magazine whenever I go into EB. But did any of us actually buy it?
Who buys magazines
I
anymore?
have actually gotten it on occasion, and the Game Informer Australia version is actually really fucking good. So
I know it's good. Like I have seen some of their articles, and like they're a great publication.
In particular, the head editor I follow on Twitter, Dave Milner, he does a great job, and it has some very, very interesting sort of commentary pieces on the industry in general. So I'm going to miss sort of seeing his editorial front and center. And I tell you what, for a magazine, in terms of the amount of effort they put into some of their covers, they've got some beautiful pieces of art that they've done over the last few years. Some absolutely
and they would get some interesting reveals and stuff too. So they definitely did good work.
Yeah.
And David Milner actually said that this decision wasn't due to low sales, that it was more of a restructuring decision, which was interesting. There's been no downturn in sales.
Yeah. Well, it's all part of that GameStop sort of, slow wind up in the US because they're not doing great at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, they tried to sell themselves and didn't get any buyers, and so they're having to shut down a whole bunch of stuff, hence why Game Informer Australia is shutting down.
Yeah. Super sad. Yeah.
And then another piece of news that I was just reading about this afternoon, and it's kind of outside of our sphere a little bit, but there's some new regulations which the Chinese government have announced regarding licensing games in their region. So for the longest time, the sort of outside game market was basically banned officially in China. There was a massive sort of secondary market, but they have slowly been opening up to actually sell like legal video games in mainland China. And these latest restrictions, though, are pretty draconian. There's only going to be a certain number of games that they license every year. So there's a restricted amount. And there's some pretty strict rules, such as like a very tight ban on gambling, which would be expected, but it also extends to Mahjong, which is a super popular game in China. They're also banning any depiction of death or corpses.
Oh, that's a lot of stuff out then. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff out. And what was the other thing? Oh, anything, this is a weird one, anything that is considered to depict imperial scheming.
Huh.
So there's this whole thing with like apparently China cracks down a lot on anything that portrays old imperial China, the sort of courtly life side of imperial China. So like the sort of plotting and scheming that nobles and like royal family members and stuff would get up to in the past. They crack down on that super hard. So yeah, like no games with court scheming, which might affect the Total War 3 Kingdoms, which is about to come out. But I mean, it's the sort of thing where they're starting from zero. So the fact that they're near zero, so the fact that they're letting some games in is a start, but it does suck that they've got these draconian measures. Oh, and also they've ruled out blood and specifically cited color variations of blood. So a lot of the time game developers would just palette swap blood to green or whatever to get away with regulations. But they're like, nah, you can't just color swap it. We're not having any blood in our games. So,
do you think that would prevent something like a Star Wars game from reaching their shores? Because I mean, they're pretty low on the blood, and while violent, there's not a lot of death sort of really portrayed in Star Wars. But the Imperial aspect, I wonder.
No, I think the Imperial aspect is specifically their Chinese history. It's something like that they're sensitive about of their history. I think if it's fantasy, then that doesn't count.
Okay.
But so I think a Star Wars game could be included. They'd probably have the fading bodies thing. Like if you remember the Left 4 Dead 2 in Australia, how as soon as you kill a zombie, it would just kind of fade away. It wouldn't actually be a corpse.
Yeah.
They'd probably do that sort of thing. Yeah. So who knows?
I remember a similar article that I read regarding World of Warcraft in China where they replace any skeletons with zombies.
Yeah.
But they don't allow skeletons in their media over there.
Yep.
That's definitely been a big thing for a while, is skeletons and stuff. So something to keep an eye on, and hopefully they get more games coming their way. They did actually recently sign a deal with Nintendo to start selling Switches in China legally. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's a big get for Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
China obviously just can't handle the spoopies.
Yep.
Can't handle the spoopies at all. No.
Yep.
All right. Well, all right. We could maybe put some thoughts around some kind of Chinese game development strategy. Talking about building games in general. Now, we talked about what we were going to do tonight last week, and that was we were going to run a bit of a party game jam episode, courtesy of Mr. Game Dad Matt, who's putting on this one for us. So, Matt, what is the task tonight? Let's dive in.
So everybody was tasked with putting together the sequel to a game they hated, so that you would actually enjoy the sequel. Now Luke had actually asked last week whether or not a remake would be okay in this situation, and the answer is yes, because that's still technically a sequel. The other game still exists. You're not remaking the original game. You're making a new game that is the old one. Yeah. And yes, we're going to do elevator pitches to begin with, and then we're going to just discuss them at length and probably have a lot of fun breaking them down and why they work. So I'm going to demonstrate what an elevator pitch would look like I have completely come unprepared for this game idea, but I thought it'd be really funny, okay? So here we go. My game idea that I was going to pitch was going and remaking this very, very well-known platformer game from way back when, and actually have a really good team go and develop it. So we're going to get the Ubisoft team that made Rayman and everything to go and remake Bubsy 3D and make it actually good.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god.
Bubsy 3D. I loved Bubsy 3D.
I nearly chose a Bubsy game, so I'm glad I didn't.
It'd be really funny if one of you actually did pitch that. That'd be great. But yeah, no, we're gonna go and have it'll be Bubsy 3D 2D because it's gonna be 2D. It won't be 3D. So there's so much potential, I think, in that sort of idea. We got a really recent Bubsy game that's total garbage,
and there's another one being announced as well.
Oh, really?
There is? I hadn't actually heard about that one.
There's another Bubsy game on the way.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, God. I hope it's from a different studio, because the other most recent one, I've seen some gameplay videos and it doesn't even work.
Yeah, let's get these Bubsy games out of here.
But yeah, so Luke, let's start with you. So what was your pitch for the game idea that you had?
All right. Well, I mean, funnily enough, we sort of chatted a little bit on WhatsApp during the week about how difficult it is to pick a game that we hated, because Christian, you kind of agreed with this too. Typically we tend to buy games that we like, or at least think that we're going to like, and it's very rare that we actually completely miss the mark on that and get something that we extremely dislike. However, the breadth of games that we tend to play on a show like ours means that every now and then there's a stinker, or one that just doesn't rub us the right way. And in fact, there is one particularly notable one that long-time listeners of Party Loaded will know that I had a particular issue with way back from episode 24 of our show. So The game that I'm about to pitch you, let's see if you can pick it after I get through the 30-second elevator pitch, okay? So, the year is 2069. A mutant strain of the H5N1 influenza virus has exploded unchecked, rapidly killing a staggering % of the global human population. Attempts to engineer an antivirus have proven unsuccessful, instead having an incredible effect of heightening the mental capabilities of the virus's avian carriers to a super intelligent level. As one of the last surviving agents of the Human Liberation Front, you must risk using experimental new mind-melding technology to take on a feathered form and sneak, seduce, and slay your way up through the pecking order of evolved avian society. Only you can learn the dark secret behind the virus outbreak and save humanity from the brink of extinction.
I'm buying it.
Is this Angry Birds?
No. This is Hatterful Boyfriend 2, The Seeds of Sin.
The Seeds of Sin.
I fucking love it. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's
cool.
brilliant.
Do you want me to explain more, or are we going to go into the more detail later?
We'll go to others first, and then
Okay.
we'll get into more detail. So, Christian, what was your elevator pitch?
Okay, my elevator pitch. So my game that I'm making a sequel to is Duke Nukem Forever.
Ooh,
Oh.
yes.
So let's got to articulate this. How do I articulate this? So one of the worst things about Duke Nukem Forever was how it was a relic of a bygone era, and that Duke, the character, is horribly offensive and out of time and just shouldn't exist anymore. And we're going to turn that into the core guiding principle of the game, where the tables are turned on Duke and he's forced to come to terms with the fact that he as a character now lives in a world where his behavior is unacceptable. He's going to be constantly confronted by people surrounding him, telling him that his behavior is not okay. and he's going to be forced to go to therapy and confront his inner demons.
This is amazing.
So good.
And I've got some more about how that's actually going to work in the mechanics and everything. But basically, yeah, I want to turn Duke into kind of a sympathetic idiot. Like, he doesn't understand why he's so goddamn offensive. And through the course of the game, he has to come to terms with that and realizes, and tries to become a better man. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
Women aren't objects.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh God, we're gonna have so much to unpack here. I love it. Okay, Adrian, what's your
That's
pitch?
great. I feel woefully underprepared. I couldn't really think of much, but I have one idea, and it's nowhere near as funny or as hilarious as either of those two. My pitch is a sequel to. I know there already is a sequel. Let's call it Life is Strange 3, but it's Life is Quiet, and the main character is deaf, and this gives me an excuse to work in tons of accessibility options into a game, and this is where my mind wandered to, because I spent all day doing sign language interpreting. I'm like, shit, what can I do? Sign language. That's it.
I like that though. That's a really neat idea.
Yeah.
So it's called Life is Quiet.
Yeah, I like that.
In terms
Alright.
of the style of game that the Life is Strange games are, I think that's actually a really good scaffolding for that sort of angle. Yeah.
It's a really good fit. Yeah. Like, that works really, really well. Like, the kind of adventure game, talking with characters type thing. That would be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start unpacking things. We'll go back around in order and we'll just discuss things, I think. So we'll start off with the Hatterful Boyfriend 2. Seeds of Evil, was it? Or something like that?
Seeds of Sin.
Seeds of Sin,
Can I just
okay.
say how much I fucking hate Hatterful Boyfriend? Holy shit, that game. My God.
Quite honestly, I know some people that are fans of Hatterful Boyfriend, and
They're
they
wrong.
will
They're
love
fucking
this
idiots.
idea. They will love this idea. So what exactly is it? Is it actually like a stealth game? Because when you're describing it, I'm imagining like Metal Gear Solid.
Okay, so I should probably describe what kind of game Hatterful Boyfriend is before I go into sort of how this one's going to differ. So, Hatterful Boyfriend is basically a bird dating simulator. It's one of those. Fucking, my God!
I just Googled it, and as you're describing it, I'm looking at screenshots, and I gotta say, you're wrong. This game looks amazing.
Can you see why I hate it though? Like, with all that you know about me. Good God, man. Come on. Anyway, you try and play this thing. Oh, God. Actually, no, you probably would like it because you're fucking weird. Anyway. Probably the best comparison I can make is, what was that game that we spoke about recently that, Matt, I know you... I think, Christian, you might have played it too, which had that... it was like these sort of schoolgirls, like three schoolgirls.
Doki Doki Literature Club?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. It's like a a still image sort of narrative adventure game that's very much
Visual novel.
Yeah, it's a visual novel. Okay, that's probably the better way to describe it. So, but this one is just the thing I hated about Hatterful Boyfriend is that it tried to do too many things and succeeded at none of them. It had this weird kind of leveling up system with regards to the grades that you were trying to achieve, like going to school, because the whole thing was based around this school, and I actually remember the names of these things because I had to look them up again today and remind me why I hated so much this game. You're at this school called St. Pigeonations University or something like that, and basically you're the only human student at this school, which is full of birds. And you don't understand what the fuck is going on. But gradually it sort of is uncovered during the game. And I'll just say that Imogen loved this game. This is like her favourite game ever. This was like the crown example of where she and I differed on taste for some things. But basically, it's a whole bunch of different angles you can go with this game. It's a huge branching path narrative. You can get into these weird situations where you're having encounters with pigeon bikie gangs, or trying to deal with mad professors inside the school, and whether you're cutting class or getting jobs on the side and this sort of stuff. My biggest issue with it is that it was just boring. Like, none of it excited or enticed me. Like, some of it just seemed like weird for weird's sake without actually explaining itself fully. And it just went on for way too long. It was a very, very slow game, and I did not have the patience for it. I didn't enjoy the artwork, which I thought was inconsistent. I didn't enjoy the characters. It was all over the place. It lost me straight away. So, part of the reason why I didn't enjoy it is because it was so passive and not really interactive. You were kind of just sitting there and clicking text all the time. I would have loved more to do. So you're entirely correct in what you were saying. It is got some stealth elements. What I'm actually pitching this as is I actually want to take the framework of the game We Happy Few and actually make it good, because We Happy Few is not necessarily well received. But the image of We Happy Few, in terms of you're basically trying to infiltrate a society which wants you dead, and you're basically trying to, put on like a mask of sorts to sort of find out more about your surroundings and what's happening and uncover the plot. That's how I actually want to build this game. So basically, what the idea is, you're using like a mind melding device that puts you in the body of a bird. So you're basically infiltrating this, bird society to try and find out what the fuck has happened and who is behind actually releasing this virus that's kind of killed off the human population. Now, I should mention that this stuff around the virus, this is actually stuff that was introduced in the lore in Hatoful Boyfriend. So timeline-wise, this would kind of be like a Red Dead 2 situation, where it's technically a prequel in terms of the timeline, because this is the stuff that happens before Hatoful Boyfriend, because by then most of the humans are dead. So, and like, there's all this dark undertone shit that you never really learn about in the game unless you're prepared to spend 4 hours sifting through all this trash story to get to it. And I wasn't prepared to do that, so I used a few wikis. So, but anyway, yeah. So basically, you're this character called Amelia DuPont, who's an acclaimed genetic sort of scientist, and she is part of this Human Liberation Front, and she is the only one, because she understands this new mind melding technology that can actually inhabit the body of a bird and actually try and infiltrate this society. And these birds are basically very human, like in their culture and their values, and they're basically taking the place of humans on the planet. So they're starting to adopt the way that human society operates. And you're trying to infiltrate it, and by doing that, you actually need to befriend birds and actually try and get very close to some of them. So there's that whole seduction thing, which is why it's still a Hatoful Boyfriend game. But a lot of the rest of it is very cloak and dagger, basically trying to murder your way through stealthily to get to the command structure and work out what's actually going on, who's released this virus, who's behind it, all that kind of stuff. But in a fun way and in a heavy, heavy narrative way that, again, has lots of different branching paths, but it's a lot more active in terms of you not being passive at all. You've got some real decisions to make. It's kind of Metroidvania in some of the aspects in terms of traversal around the map, and you need to interact with different characters to unlock different areas and find out more about the story. But it won't bore you. It'll actually keep you active and sort of engaged the whole time, because you're always moving around, you're always trying to learn more, and the agency is very much in your hands. You're never going to be there just as a passenger sort of reading text on a page. So, but yeah, making it with much higher stakes, a much more tangible goal in mind, and a lot more sort of background as to who you are and why you're actually there in the first place, as opposed to just being confused the whole way through. So yeah, that's exactly how I want to run it. I actually did consider sort of going on the We Happy Few kind of vibe, and instead of calling it Hatoful Boyfriend 2, We Happy Coup, but I thought that might be a bit too on the line. So yeah.
Like the ultimate crossover.
Yeah, exactly.
Are the enemies still just regular pigeons?
No, they're a variety of birds. So
okay, but are they just like they're just regular birds, or are they like
hyper intelligent? So they're basically humans in bird form.
But they look like birds, right?
Yeah,
they're not like weird humanoid birds. Okay.
In the actual game, it's super weird how they did it. Like, they actually, and this is where some of the inconsistency came in. A lot of the sort of images, they had birds and they showed like a human picture next to the bird. And I think that was presented as almost like what this character would look like if it was a human, but it was actually supposed to be a bird. But it confused the hell out of me.
Yeah, I thought I remember reading that was an option or that was added later.
I've got no idea.
Yeah, I think that wasn't originally in the game. But anyway.
The creators of the game were obviously on the worst kind of acid to begin with, so I'm not going to question it. So, yeah, but that's generally what I'm aiming at. Yeah.
I just don't understand what's unclear about dating birds that was so confusing to you. Like,
Matt, just
what's not a clear goal there?
Okay, look, I get birds of a feather fuck together, but no.
I think it sounds like visual novels is probably not your genre at all.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this might be a discussion that was had 2 years ago, but
I have played some visual novels that I like, but they definitely need to be very good at what they do to sort of snag me, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, from everything I understand about Hatoful Boyfriend, it is very much like a classic designed Japanese visual novel.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of the length and everything, because even Doki Doki Literature Club has that, where it just takes so long to get to the best parts of it.
But
that's on purpose, by design.
Like, Doki Doki, like, it strings you along just enough before you completely drop off. It's about like 2.5, 3 hours in where like the shit starts to get real. Whereas, like proper visual novels can go for like 15, 20 hours of just reading. So,
like, I never played Dream Daddy, but I saw enough of Dream Daddy to know that I think I actually would have enjoyed that more. It's definitely not my kind of game, but I would have enjoyed it more than Hatoful, I think, for sure. Yeah.
It sounds though like you've kept the dating, which is, probably the core part of Hatoful Boyfriend.
And the birds.
Yeah,
and
I've tried to keep it kind of true to the background, but making it a very different kind of game to kind of engage people that wouldn't be into that style. So, yeah.
And quite honestly, I reckon if you made this, Hatoful Boyfriend fans would be all over it.
Yeah. Technically, there is a Hatoful Boyfriend sequel. It's like a holiday-themed one, which I just found out about today and thought, I'll never play that either. I mean, this, again, it's kind of the sequel prequel idea. So, yeah, there you go.
I could totally see Hideo Kojima, like, developing this.
Oh, it feels like a Kojima game. Fucking sign me up, baby, but no.
It feels like it just has that bit of Metal Gear weirdness to it that would just work so well.
Even dating pigeons could not possibly be as weird as some of the shit that his mind comes out with, so... yeah.
All right, Christian, let's break down what you were working on.
Yeah, okay. So I guess I'll elaborate a little more on why Duke Nukem Forever was so terrible. I mean, obviously the game, like, as I said, Duke Nukem as a character is a relic of the 90s, and the sort of, like, his crass, sexist style of humor doesn't really fly as much these days. But even then, like, if the game had been well written, like, it still might have been able to fly in some way. Like, I do firmly believe that pretty much any topic can be funny if it's handled correctly. And I feel like that's what I want to do with Duke Nukem. Is he is still this sexist, idiotic character, but that's we're now laughing at him instead of, like, at what he's doing.
Yeah.
And also, like, the actual gameplay of Duke Nukem Forever was just boring as shit. It was just bog standard first-person shooter with the same guns that you had in Duke Nukem 3D. It looked awful. And the game, there were no new, like, options. Like, there were no skills or abilities or anything at all. It was just bog standard, plain old, like, Duke Nukem gunplay. And the game was, like, even after the amount of time it take to make, it was still only half made. And after a couple of levels, the game environments just scaled back to basically nothing. You just got corridor after corridor of enemies, and you could tell that the back half of the game was stuck together with duct tape. So that was another thing that was awful about the game. So my Duke Nukem Forever 2, I could come up with a clever name for it. I was thinking Duke Nukem for Never, maybe. So yeah, Duke is like, there's going to be an intervention where all of Duke's, like, friends, the people in Duke's life, like, confront him, and they each have, like, a kind of individual. They each represent an individual grievance. So, like, they've all got something specific that they need to get off their chest about Duke, and he goes to a comedy club and tries to do a routine and gets booed and doesn't understand. This drives him into, like, a spiral of self-doubt. and then eventually he does agree to go to therapy. And then what's the actual game? So aliens then invade, of course. But this time, what the aliens have done is they've actually come with an army of mutated cloned Duke Nukems. So on a previous mission or something, they like managed to extract some sperm from Duke with like an alien prostitute, and they've used it to create an army of mutated Duke Nukems because they figure Duke Nukem keeps defeating them, they'll use Duke Nukem to defeat him. And so this is kind of like a metaphor, of Duke fighting himself. He has to literally confront himself, and they'll be all sort of mutated in different ways that represent his vices.
I love it.
And also, so it's going to be like action chapters, and then it will cut to his therapy sessions, and it will have like a cut scene of him in therapy. And then through the therapy, it will like kind of unlock new abilities. So they're called the powers of positivity, and it's like a skill tree of different things you can do, but they're all to do with things Duke is learning to do in his therapy. So you can hug aliens to death. You can like meditate, and that slows down time. When you smile, it heals you, and you can stun enemies by complimenting them. And there's just all these different ways that Duke is growing as a person and becoming more positive, and you can actually use those in combat against these mutated alien Dukes.
Oh my god!
And then the final thing is that I just had a little note here that the aliens had also made like clones of each of Duke's friends, like all the people who confronted him, and they're kind of like the bosses of each level, and overcoming that boss kind of represents Duke learning and understanding the grievance that person had with him, and that in the end, when he goes back and talks to them all, he'll understand everything and he'll be able to reconcile with his friends. So
interesting. It's almost like you're describing a video game version of a 12-step program.
Yeah,
sort of, yeah.
Like I'm just imagining the advertising campaign. Like there would be so much potential gold in this, like comedy-wise. Like you're right. Like the fact that you're taking Duke and you're basically pointing out, hey, the shit you're doing is pretty unacceptable, is funny. Especially like when you're going about it in such a way that gives him a potential and opportunity to grow. And I'm just imagining he has all those catchphrases and everything that have not aged well, and how they could be potentially updated as part of this game to be something positive. It would be so funny.
It's funny.
I love it.
I've just realized that probably the closest equivalent to Duke Nukem in a modern day gaming era is probably actually Johnny Cage, if you think about it. Not that far off. Yeah.
Johnny Cage has that same. He visually is very similar and the same sort of cocky attitude, but like Duke was always there's just the gross sexist side of things with Duke.
Yeah.
Like there's some jokes in Duke Nukem Forever that I don't even want to repeat because they're like frankly so offensive. Adrian, you can think of one, I know, but
I'm not going to say it.
I'm not going to say it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some stuff in there that's just not on.
He was always a gross sort of hyper caricature of Ash Williams from Evil Dead. Like that was always what I remember him as. Yeah.
That's pretty accurate, yeah.
And the difference is Johnny Cage is still the caricature, but Duke Nukem is not. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you was kind of supposed to actually think Duke was cool in the 90s, but Johnny Cage was always kind of a caricature. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
like he was the protagonist rather than you can't really have a protagonist that's a caricature without it not working right. Because it's kind of meant to encompass like what your values are as a character when you're playing that character, and what you should value as a player. Which obviously we don't want players valuing what Duke valued. But, you know, it's actually fairly topical not only to have Duke grow up in that respect, but I think with a lot of gamers as they are today, that's a good opportunity for them to potentially grow up too.
Definitely. I'm kind of imagining almost like, because Duke will have aged a lot as well. So he's an old man. He's literally a man from another time. It's kind of like your like racist old grandparents.
Yeah.
And they're like... But I mean, Duke's never been racist. It's racist. But
he's racist towards aliens.
He's racist towards aliens, yeah. But it's that same kind of thing where it's like, oh, crazy Grandpa Duke. He's always going on about like babes and that sort of thing. Yeah. but yeah, having to be confronted by that. That's my idea.
It's funny, like on a whole other level, this almost reminds me a little bit of like the complete character turnaround in older age form that Kratos went through recently.
As I was talking about it tonight, that popped into my mind as well. I was thinking, should I have gone for like making it serious and like Duke's got a kid now, but like, nah, fuck that.
Interesting. Maybe a teenage daughter.
I came here to get woke and chew gum, and I'm all out of gum.
But yeah, look, so it's still a first-person shooter.
Yes, it's still a first-person shooter. It still has gunplay. You're still fighting aliens, but they're like the filler aliens are Duke Nukem mutated clones. But you have more combat abilities. So there's skill trees of abilities that help with traversal. They help with like bullet time and I'm thinking more like Doom, where you can you've got an array of different abilities that you can do that are all his powers of positivity. And there's action set pieces, there's boss fights, but it's cutting between each chapter starts with one of Duke's therapy sessions. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. So I'm curious because I have this on my list of questions to ask. But do you think that the fans of the original games will enjoy this?
I think that many would, because I was a fan of the original games. I loved Duke Nukem as a kid, and I think I would want to play this game. Like I'm making this game, or I'm hypothetically making this game, because I think it'd be funny as hell. It would need good comedy writers. That's the important thing. Is that like I think this game would live or die on the strength of its comedy.
100%.
And so if it's actually written well, then I think that it could win over like fans of Duke Nukem. Definitely.
You could keep the original art style even and just make a new Duke Nukem 3D, like use all the 3D assets.
Could do,
just make some new 2D sprites and put them in the game.
Yeah.
They are working on
John St. John, the original voice actor as well, definitely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He'd be on board.
He would totally be on board with this.
He doesn't have time for our game. He's got so many important projects on the go that I don't think we would be able to snag him.
All right. Okay, Adrian, lucky last. So let's break down this thing that you were working on.
Okay, so my game is nowhere near as fleshed out as any of this. It's really, the whole idea was in the pitch. So let's work through it
down. Yeah,
let's work through it together. So, I mean, I will probably be drawing on a lot of the themes that we touched upon in my original debut episode where we talked about accessibility for deaf and hard of hearing people in games. And I think, as you said, the Life is Strange kind of formula is probably the best way to go about that with, a nice subtle, slow pace storytelling kind of vibe. I originally was thinking maybe we could make new God of War 2 and have Kratos motion capture, sign language, the whole thing. I remember that was an idea that we played around with in that original episode that we thought was quite fun. But I think maybe it might be better to go the sensitive route. But some ideas that came to mind were really sort of encapsulating what the deaf experience might be like and then putting that into a game. And primarily one of the hooks that I really liked was if our main character was deaf and then the way that they even thought to themselves was all done visually with pictures. Because from what I've gathered from talking to deaf people is that they don't think in words like we do. They often think in concepts and they think visually. So I thought it would be a really good storytelling hook to perhaps have a game where the main character doesn't use English or words to express their thoughts to the player, and instead that could all be done through a variety of visual options, perhaps comic strips or little cutscenes or even symbols and images might be a cool way to do that. And then as they proceed through, I don't even know what the story would be, but as they proceed through the world, how they interact with other people would be dependent on what their level of language might be. So maybe if you're encapsulating the true deaf experience, perhaps your main character would be lost in like a sea of a world that they don't understand, or that things happen around them but not to them, and conversations are missed and things like that. I think it might be a good sort of storytelling mechanic, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
that's really all I had going for me. So I can't really talk anymore.
Can you? Is there any supernatural element that you can think of? Because one of the cool things about Life is Strange, the first one, was the whole rewind.
The time
mechanic.
rewind?
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that springs to mind which might be good is that if this main character who's deaf could, in the same way where you can choose when to rewind time, maybe you could choose to elucidate a conversation so that a conversation that was previously inaccessible to you because you can't hear it could then be made accessible. And so maybe by choosing where you make these choices, you gain information that you wouldn't have access to before.
So you've got like a limited number of times that you can use that ability. So you have to kind of pick and choose which conversation you actually like comprehend fully.
Understand. Yeah. So perhaps your in-game avatar would be walking down a hallway and see two people talking, and you could have the option to understand that conversation, and then it would instead of like let's say for example in the game there were speech bubbles and it was just all like that squiggly kind of aggravated symbol, it's just like pencil scribblings. Let's imagine every conversation is like that, and then you can approach any conversation in the game when you have this power and pick a conversation and use your power on that conversation, and instead of scribbles they sort of they straighten themselves out into symbols or pictures or whatever thinking mechanic we have for our character that makes it easy to understand. I think it would be good if it still wasn't English, because that would force the player to be thinking in an abstract manner, which sort of helps with the accessibility. And perhaps by gaining these sort of insights into conversation, it can represent sort of what hard of hearing people experience as well, where they get snippets of conversation.
I wonder if you could make it a resource of sorts where you actually can build like a comprehension score, and then you spend those comprehension points in actually clearing up areas of the conversation that otherwise were very hard to sort of get your head around. So almost like sort of rubbing over the top of some of those speech bubbles that have the squiggles, and then they actually sort of become clearer as you do it, but you've only got a limited number of those that you can use, or something like that.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I think what also is important, and one of the key hooks that I would like in this game is, let's say we're sparing no expense and we have every available resource to us as developers. I would imagine that there would be other deaf characters in the game that you can communicate with, and there would be fully realized motion captured sign language. And, if we're going a whole hog, let's localize it for each region or each country in the world and make it fully accessible. If we had the money and we had the resources and the time, why not go whole hog? And that way, if there are people with a lived experience of having hearing loss, they can relate to that character too, rather than it just being like fan service for hearing people that might enjoy looking at sign language. That way it can, be a more sort of tailored experience to them as well.
One thing I sort of have learnt from you, actually, sort of talking about accessibility and particularly with people who are hard of hearing, is just the broad spectrum of ways that people can be impacted by that. And what I'd love to see on a game like this is if your character at the beginning of like character creation, you could actually select how hard of hearing they are, and it could almost be like a sliding scale that you can kind of set the game at for yourself, and that would change the way that you actually interact depending on which setting you've put it on. So
that's a cool idea. And actually, what would be cool is that if there were enough hearing characters and deaf characters in the game, and then at the start of the game, you slid a slider, and depending on how far you slid it across, it changed which group of people you were able to interact with and which ones you weren't.
It's like a trade-off. Like you can be like this far towards understanding the hearing conversations, this far towards understanding the deaf conversations, but you had to pick and choose.
Yeah, and then in the middle, maybe you understand both, but not quite as well.
Yeah. That's cool.
I think that might be a good idea.
I can imagine it kind of tying into the narrative about like being stuck between worlds, and there could be some supernatural element of like being trapped between different worlds or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that as far as the scale of deaf people, the ones that are stuck in the middle, that are sort of hard of hearing, that have perhaps grown up with a cochlear implant, and then later on in their life learnt to sign. That is the number one theme that always comes up with people who are discovering the deaf community, is that they feel stuck between two worlds. So, and between two worlds is a very common sort of easy to visualize video game theme. I think, you can think of many games where, go into a different dimension or get sucked into another world. I think that would be quite easy to implement.
And it's well within the theme of Life is Strange as well, like that kind of growing up and being
definitely
like an outcast and growing up into a situation where you kind of accept who you are is really like the overarching theme, I think, of both of the Life is Strange games right now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
A key element of this as well, which I'd like to touch on, is that sort of more talking about, rather than the pitch and the game itself, is more about how the game would be made, is that I would want to include as many deaf people on the project as possible.
Yeah.
So you'd be researching to find out how many deaf and hard of hearing game developers are out there and maybe bring them in to consult on the project itself. And it's like any time you talk about disability or any kind of social issue, you'd want to represent the people you're talking about rather than just doing it yourself. And I imagine that would add all sorts of new ideas to the project that, you know, might be worthwhile.
Minor observation, you know, all three of us have actually accidentally tonight gone with a pretty consistent theme. All of us have pitched something that is very much a between two worlds kind of story. So, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of that.
So all we need is a deaf Duke Nukem dating simulator, and we can pull all our resources, and it would be amazing.
Oh my god! Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah.
That's it. That's the title of this episode, by the way.
I am disappointed that nobody just said big anime titties, but here we are. So.
Well, I assume that was implied in all of our pitches. I don't think it needs to be said.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, big anime titties and how to fall is something that you probably don't need to put on birds, but sure.
No.
Where else are they going to go?
Like, there is the blue tit. So when you say big anime titties, I'm just imagining anime birds. So
Sure.
yeah, really big ones.
I don't mind a good chicken breast, but I prefer to down it with a nice glass of red personally, but you know.
Oh dear.
Well, I think we can call that a wrap. That was a lot of fun.
Oh my god, that went about exactly how I thought it would, which is great. No, good job. Thanks for that, Matt. That was awesome. So, yeah, I mean, this is definitely a format I think we'll have to swing back around to at some point in the future. So, yeah, get thinking about some other themes, man. I think this is a good one.
I have a list.
Yeah,
I have a list of themes. Like, I can give you like a little taste of the sort of things that I have lined up.
Oh, I'm nervous about that though. Don't you want to keep it a surprise for the future?
Well, we don't know when we're going to do the next one.
Yeah, okay.
And I might come up with more stuff in the meantime. So I had so the make a game sequel to a game you hate, so you'd actually enjoy it, was the top of the list because I'm like, that is such a good theme. But I had make a game based on a movie that doesn't have a game already. Make a
That's
game
a great one.
Make a game that makes MMOs cool again.
That makes what
make
cool
a
again?
game makes MMOs cool again.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I thought for a sec you said emos, and I'm just like,
No.
they were never cool.
Make a game that will save the PS Vita.
Oh.
I don't know if that's possible.
Or make a kart racer. Just nice and simple.
Oh, kart racer.
Oh, I've got a brilliant idea for a car racer already.
Yeah.
So yeah, I keep on adding stuff to that list whenever something comes to mind. But there's a whole variety of different things that we can come up with for this sort of format. And I can, like, having done this tonight, I've got some ideas as to how we can improve upon it for next time we do it. But yes, absolutely, let's come back to it again.
Yeah, excellent. I'm almost tempted to see if we can get Imogen on for the next one and force her to design a sequel for a game that I recommended to her that she hated. Because there was a few. Anyway. All right. Well, anyway, that is a wrap. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening tonight. Thanks, Matt, for the topic. Thanks, gentlemen, for your contributions on the other stuff. And I guess we've all got Avengers to look forward to tomorrow night. So, I mean, aside from gaming over the next week, does anyone want to make any last-minute sort of end-game predictions, just because we're on that before we wrap up tonight? Do you see anyone dying, living? Everyone who listens to this show is going to probably, a good portion of people would have seen it by now, so they'll know how on the money we were.
Yeah, I was going to say, I most recently watched Iron Man 3 and had posted a big bunch of comments about it on my Facebook, but, like, having heard that apparently there's going to be a whole bunch of closure on a crap ton of narratives that were kind of left hanging from not just Infinity War, but all the different MCU stuff, I do think that we'll see a return to that Iron Man 3 plotline of him having the PTSD after the attack on New York. And quite frankly, if they kill Iron Man off, I'm going to be really pissed. And
I hope he dies. I hope he dies. Oh, I'm so sick of Iron Man.
Like, I totally expect them to fade him out to the background, but killing him off would be really... Given he's a person that's going through mental health issues, like, to have no closure to that and to just have him just going out there and killing himself to save the world, that is not the kind of message I think they should be sending. Like,
I think quite simply, everybody who died in Infinity War before the snap will stay dead, and everyone who died from the snap will come back to life. And I don't really imagine any other huge surprises as far as deaths go. I think they may do something to, write Captain America and Iron Man out of the story more, but I don't think they're going to flat out kill them.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to sunset both of those characters without killing them. That's my theory. Yeah.
I could see Captain America being killed off. I could see that. Iron Man less so, just because there's so many things that, like, let's not fridge that character, because he was literally just talking about having kids, right? Like,
if they're going to kill one of them, I agree it'll be Captain America, but I'm doubtful they'll kill either. But we'll see.
Yeah. Well.
It's when it shocks all of us and they kill Captain Marvel.
that would be interesting. Yeah. All right. Well,
as long as they bring back Duke Nukem, I'll be happy.
Yes, absolutely. It's exactly what the MCU
I don't feel
needs.
so good.
All right.
I'm going to find some Infinity Stones.
In the meantime, mail at partyloaded.com, partyloaded on Facebook, at partyloaded show on Twitter. Check out everything else on channelendgame.com. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. We'll see you again in 7 days' time, 8 days' time, because we're back to our schedule next week. But enjoy Endgame, enjoy Game of Thrones, enjoy all the games. We'll see you again next week. For now, good night.
Good night.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.